Hey, what's up? Mr. Olmedo here. Today you're in for a great little tutorial on how you can bring all of your rotoscoped animations into one final product. And this is exactly what it's gonna look like. Okay, so let me go ahead and just rewind this. And this is not playing in real time, but you can kind of see what it looks like. And I'm actually just gonna scrub through this just because it'll go a lot faster. So we have Edward here doing his cool little running man. Then we go into the moonwalk with Cook, a little bit of headbanging, and so on and so on. And essentially this is just kind of looks really similar to an iPod commercial. Really looks really cool and dynamic, and I think this is something you're really going to enjoy putting together. So let's look at some of the basic elements of this, and then we can go on and create this ourselves. First off, let me bring up my timeline, and this can get a little bit confusing, and particularly since we haven't really touched too much on motion itself. But essentially, you guys are similar to you guys already know what timelines look like. You guys know keyframing, all that good stuff. So essentially, this is my very first clip on the timeline, and I'll just scrub through this. You can see it's Edward doing his little thing, and it goes on to the next clip, the next clip, the next clip. These three here are each individual separate clips themselves, and I'm going to show you how you can combine them all, and then hopefully toward the end we can add a background, but we may just keep this on white for now just to make it easier on all of us. So let's get started. I'm going to start a brand new project, and you're going to have this preset options here. I want you to go ahead and click on here and go down and select Broadcast HD 720p. Now, when we did our videos, we shot them at a resolution of 640 by 480, and that's the native resolution that the actual photo booth camera records at. But we're going to actually change this to HD Broadcast 720, so you have a nice actual HD product by the time you're done. And in doing that, it's going to look better, particularly if you upload this stuff to YouTube or Vimeo, things like that. It's going to look way, way better. So we're going to actually change our duration for now to 1200. Actually, you're probably not even in this. Let me go ahead and just start a new one again so I can kind of see. We're going to go over to here and go over to Broadcast 720. Yeah, and you guys don't see anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and just hit OK. And here we are. I recommend you go over to Window, Layouts, and Cinema. I cannot select Cinema because my resolution is small so that the movie could fit within your screen size right now. But you will have the option to go over to Layouts and then Cinema, and that's the one I recommend you to choose. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command 4 and Command 7. It's going to bring up my timeline, it's going to bring up my layers, and it's going to bring up your file browser inspector, all that good stuff. Now, we're just going to do a little bit of setup like we're doing now. Let's go over here to our zoom percentage, and we're going to choose Fit to Window. That way, if any windows get adjusted, we always see the entire frame itself. If we choose 100, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't see, so it's kind of difficult to determine spacing, alignment, things like that. So we're just going to choose Fit to Window. I'm going to actually change full to I'm going to choose half. You're welcome to stay at full. What this does is it renders the actual real-time previews that you're watching here on screen at half resolution. That means it's actually going to speed up the process of actually rendering and being able to view things in real time. I may actually drop down to a third. It's going to look worse, but again, this is just for your preview purposes. When you actually export the movie, it's going to keep that HD resolution. Now, on SharePoint, you're going to have a folder called under Digital Animation. You're going to have a folder called Roto periods 3 and 4, and you're going to have all these individual files. And these are simply all the rotoscopes that you guys have done. Okay, so let's look at how we can begin this. Okay, on my last one I chose Edward Beltran's intro, and I think I'm going to stick to that one. So let's go ahead and get started. Grab Beltran over here. We're going to drag and drop over to this window area here, and this is where we start layering our information and our actual animations. So I'm going to drop it over. You're going to notice two things. One is, let's go ahead and just get rid of this group here in the meantime. You're going to have a group, and you're going to have the actual layer itself. And this layer can be moved around at will. Okay, great. Now, let's look at, first off, let me show you this resolution. See how Beltran himself is kind of jaggedy here? If I would say take this to full, he's going to look super clean. And this is exactly what your overall image is going to actually look like. Okay, for our purposes, so that I can actually render this in real time, and you can see here it's a little bit slow, I'm going to just take this down to third, and it should be able to render everything a lot quicker. Okay, now we're going to, Edward actually is perfectly fine here. He's in frame, he's doing everything he needs to be doing, and very cool. Okay, let's look at the duration of this timeline. Right now we are set to 300 frames. Edward himself did a little more than 300 frames. And if we're going to be adding a lot more actual clips after this, this needs to be extended way further out. So this number here is the duration of this timeline here. So you notice that I'm at frame 1 currently, and I can scrub all the way over to frame 300, and it will stop there. Okay, and that's not going to be enough for us. So we're going to go ahead and just click on this number and change the duration of our timeline to 1200 for now. And as we get to this point, when we're adding more and more clips and you need to extend it, this is just an easy, I mean, you can take this up to, I believe, 9999. Yeah, so close to 10,000, which is way more than we're actually going to need. So for now, I'm just going to take this to about 1200. Now you'll notice that it extended my timeline, and now you have a lot more frames to work with. And so the way we can actually see the entire timeline on here is just either with this little slider here, we can go move all the way right, and now we go from here all the way to 1200, or you can grab this little slider here and increase or decrease the zoom level. Now the actual render area that motion is going to be rendering is demonstrated or illustrated with these little markers here. So you're going to want to grab this marker here, which is at 300, this little guy here, and then just slide him all the way over. So now our render area is from frame 1 all the way over to frame 1200. Also, I'm going to go ahead and just collapse this group for now, so I don't have the layer and the groups showing. I just really only need the group. Now we have our first clip in. Simple, right? You can hit the space bar to play it and the space bar to stop. Okay, stop and start. And Beltran doing his running man. Looks good, looks great, and out. Beautiful. Now my background is actually white, black. So if I'm just kind of scrubbing through here and I just see black, we may want to change that. Normally by default it's set to black, and that's great, but I think we're going to be sticking to a white background, which looks kind of cool, reminiscent of that iPod commercial, and I think it's going to look actually a lot better than black itself. So I'm going to, if you kind of scrub over just empty space here in your timeline and it is black, easy way to change that is to go up to Edit, Project Properties, and Background Color. Select the little box. I'm just going to select one of these guys here. I'm going to close this. I'm going to hit OK. And now our background is white and matches beautifully with our project settings. Now, when you're scrubbing through this, you're going to want to ensure that when you're putting and layering a second clip, and I'll show you how I'm going to put a second clip in a second. When you're actually putting in a second clip, you're going to want to actually be at the end of this first clip. Because if I just leave some empty space here, it's going to go just to blank like this, and then it's going to jump on to the next clip. What you actually want is you want it to stop from this last clip and then go immediately into the next clip. So let's just show you an example of that. I'm just going to go back to my file browser, and I'm going to select, who did I choose second? Let's go ahead and just choose Aviles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click this guy, drag over here in the empty space, and you're going to notice that it selects a second clip. Okay, forgot to mention something. Wherever you have this playhead here and you go and drag in an object, the object that you drag in is actually going to start from wherever this playhead is at. So you saw that. So if I put the playhead here, again, drag this over, clip starts from that point. So how you can ensure that your clip itself is where it's supposed to be is pretty simple. One is you can, as you're clicking and dragging the scrubber, you can hold down shift and it's going to lock to the end of the clip. You see how it just kind of snaps to there? Okay, that's how you kind of ensure that you're at the very end of the clip. Now let me just zoom into this area here and kind of show you that Beltran, he comes down about there. He comes down and comes back up and then has a few frames here, if you notice, of white. Okay, we can fix that. So this is how you fix it, and this is how these are called trim edits. So I'm gonna go to the point where it goes to white, which is here, and if you use the left and right arrows, you can move frame by frame. So 13, 12, 11, 10, and now I'm using the right arrow. So I'm gonna go to using the arrow keys to the first frame. That actually, these last two frames look like they're frozen, so I'm gonna go to about 314 on Edward. I'm gonna grab the end of this clip, hold down shift, and snap it to the end there. Now Beltran's clip actually ends there. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and click and drag your playhead, hold down shift to snap it to the very end of Beltran's clip. Let's go ahead and extend this out so we can see everything a little bit more clearly. And so we have our playhead where we need it, 314. Now we're going to drag Ricardo's group over. I'm going to collapse his group because we don't necessarily need it right now. I'm going to collapse these as well. This is just a representation of exactly what's down here with the little thumbnail preview. Now, let's go ahead and actually this I don't really need right now. So I'm going to just go ahead and collapse that. Now, we go from Edward to Ricardo seamlessly. If I hit play, you can see that I'm going from there to there seamlessly. Okay, very nice. Again, I'm gonna scrub through. I'm gonna hold down shift, and let's go ahead and add. Who can we add now? Let's add Cook, since he's doing a cool little moonwalk. Okay, so we have our playhead in place. I'm gonna grab and drag over. It creates a third group, which is Isaiah Cook. And our problem that we can see immediately is that flash of black that Cook had over his video. Okay, and again, this is a very simple fix. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom into the clip. And let me just go ahead and slide on over. And I'm going to hit shift to snap there. Okay, so I'm going to hit right arrow, right arrow. Okay, so 2 frames. I'm going to grab the end of this clip and hit shift, lock it there. Now his clip starts there. Beautiful. Now you notice there is a little gap of white in between here. Okay, we do not want that. We want it to jump frame to frame. At least there's a visual representation of something on screen always. So I'm going to grab the timeline scrubber. I'm going to hit shift to go to the end of this clip. I'm going to grab Cook's and hit shift and lock it to there. So now we go from Aviles to Cook, okay, seamlessly. And you're going to have to probably adjust a lot of these clips yourself because they're not all perfectly just white or perfectly where they need to be. Now, here's a cool thing about motion. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out for a little bit. Command minus sign. And here's the cool thing that I mentioned to you guys when we started the project is that inside of motion, if I select Cook's clip here in the timeline, you can see it has a little bounding box. And this bounding box 1 allows me to move Cook anywhere within the frame. And on top of that, because we are working in SD high resolution, HD resolution. I keep saying SD for some reason. But I can grab this bounding box here and I can increase the size. If I wanted to keep it proportionate while I'm clicking and dragging here, you hold down Shift, and now you can only increase the size and keep it proportionate. Okay? So I'm going to just go ahead and increase the size a little bit here of Cook, and I'm going to move him up. The thing about Cook is that, I'm going to hit play. He goes like that, he goes off left to screen, and eventually he disappears. Okay, so at this point that he disappears, okay, and again, we're going to have to do a trim edit here because he disappears after this frame. So let's go ahead and trim him down a little bit, probably even more. And so at this point, let me just trim him down a little bit more. Okay. So at the point that he disappears here, okay, we want him to be completely off screen. So this is our last frame. I'm just going to do something like that. So I slide him over that way. So at this point he starts in there, and as he's moonwalking off a frame, looks pretty cool, and he's gone. Okay, that looks cool. Now let's bring in, let me go ahead and zoom out of this again and lock. Okay, I'm gonna lock to that frame there, and let's bring in Urias. Okay, so I'm gonna again click and drag over here, and actually no, I don't want this one yet. I want Ortega, the headbanging. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and make sure this is lined up. Then we get our headbanging in here. Looks pretty cool. So we got that. This guy moonwalking off screen, and boom. Then we get a cool little close-up shot of Eric headbanging. Okay, looks cool. So far we have this, and I'm just, you know what, I'm not going to play it just because it's, we're working in high resolution and it's going to take a little bit to render, which is why I chose to keep it at, I can even go to a 4, looks even worse, but it should play back a little bit better. So we have this, and we have that, got a nice little head banging going on, and then he walks off frame, looks cool. Then let's go ahead and bring in who has a really cool, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and bring her clip in, and now we have group 4. Group 5 is Melissa. She has audio. Go ahead and just we can go ahead and mute her audio. Actually, we'll just leave it for now. It's okay, no big deal. Just go ahead and we don't need audio right now. So just to mute your audio is this little track right here. So just turn that off because hers has audio. And when we're exporting, we're not going to export with any audio anyway. Just mute that audio. Actually, when I import this, let's go ahead and just re-import this. Let me line up this. Click on We'll bring this in. We'll select no audio here, and we'll import it. So now hopefully she came in with no audio. Oh, I guess not. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take off audio for now, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this group, and goes from there. So looks cool, and Melissa doing her little cool deal. Okay, so now let's look at how we can stack more than one. We have a few here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that are all independent of each other. Now let's look at how we can put some of them together. So in my last example, I grabbed, I think, people from period 4. So let's go ahead and grab Callywag, drag her in. Okay, now since we are going to be putting all these people inside the same time on screen. They're all going to be on at the same time. We want to keep them inside the same group because we want, see how each group is independent and each one is its own clip? Well, this one, we want this group to contain 3 individual clips, which is essentially 3 different people. So to do that, we'll create our first group like normal. And I'm going to also bring in Carmen. So when instead of dragging Carmen just to a blank area here, I'm actually going to drag her into this group here. And you can see how the group itself has a surrounding outline. So if I drop it in here, you're going to notice now that I have one group with 2 different layers. Okay, and again, you see over here, you got to make sure that you're lined up so that all your clips are lined up. Okay, and I'm also going to bring in Crow. Wow, Callywag, Carmen, Crow. Very nice. And he's going into this group as well. So we have 1, 2, 3 different clips, 3 different people inside one group. And I can collapse that group, and these are 3 individual people. What's the problem right now though? Well, the problem is simply they're all on top of each other like so. So if I do move, I move the group around. Okay, we have Crow here. Okay, we have Carmen here. And then we have Callywag there. Okay, so how do we get these all to show up at the same time? Simple. Okay, we're going to first select our, we're probably going to keep Crow in the middle. Okay, and we're going to change his, actually, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to keep Crow in the middle, and we'll put Carmen on the right, which you can't see her right now, and I'll show you how we can fix that. Let's go ahead and click on, right click on Nathan Crow here. We're going to go over to blend mode, and we're going to change this one to multiply. Okay, what that does is it allows you to take away all this white and see through to the bottom layer. So Nathan is our top layer, Carmen is our bottom layer. The reason we cannot see through to Francis yet is because Carmen does not have the multiply blend mode either. So we need to ensure that she has a multiply as well. And now Carmen is going to, Francis is going to appear. Now what you're noticing is that, and that looks really bad. Let me just go to half for now. What you're noticing is that it's actually multiplying the layers themselves, which is why it's difficult to actually put one layer on top of the other in this format. So we're just going to grab Frances and shift her left. Okay, so she's by herself. We're going to have Crow do his thing in the middle. And we're going to have Carmen do her thing on the right. Now I'm just gonna actually make, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm gonna make Callywag a little bigger so she matches up in size. You're welcome to make these as big as you'd like. And okay, now let's look at what we have here. Okay, we go from M all the way to these 3 cool people all dancing together on screen at once. Okay, and you'll notice one is that Francis disappears. Okay, and I'll show you a quick cool little trick to fix that. I'm gonna actually move Carmen over a little bit because I don't think we're properly spacing them, and then we'll shift him over a little bit, and so he's perfectly in the middle, and then Callywag a little to the right. Okay, now how do we fix this situation we're in? Crow and Carmen are about the same length, just a little bit off, and however Francis is way short. Okay, about half short. So how can we fix this? Simple. Okay, we're gonna actually click on Francis's layer. Okay, Callywag. We're gonna hit Command D, and it's gonna duplicate. So now I have 2 exact layers that are exactly the same. Okay, I'm gonna get this top layer and I'm gonna shift it over. So I'm gonna hit Shift to lock onto the very end of that clip, and I'm gonna move this clip over just and hit shift so it locks. Okay, now I have a exact duplicate of the layer, and if I play this back, it will actually play the clip twice. Okay, only problem is right here in the middle, okay, it goes from here and then Callywag just pops onto the beginning of the actual clip. So there's one really cool technique to fix this, which is essentially reverse this second layer. So this actual clip is going to start at the very end and play backwards. Okay, and let me show you how this works. So let's click the second layer, and I'm going to bring up my inspector. I'm going to go over to timing, and I'm going to select reverse. Okay, now look what happens. As we get to the very end of this clip, we've reversed this second clip here, and it's going to start from that exact point and come back down. So it's the clip itself is reversing. And when this movie is playing back in real time, it's really not going to be an issue, and you're not going to really notice it. So that's a cool little trick that if you have clips that are too short, that you can find a way around, and reversing them is an excellent way to do it. And here it is in real time. Okay, just little tricks that we use kind of in editing and to make things. That's part of the Hollywood magic, right? I'm actually going to get this entire group, and I'm going to end it about, let's say, about there. So I'm going to click at the very top of this group, and then I'm going to trim the entire group down to that point. And all of these will stop at that point there. Even though these go beyond, okay, the group itself is actually going to stop there. Okay, if you like your stuff to look nice and neat, then you can drag all this stuff over. But not really. It's not really going to affect anything as long as your group itself is at that point. And then we're going to go back to our file browser and make sure we are at the point we need to be. And let's go ahead and maybe drag in. Okay, let me just kind of show you briefly. Now that we're kind of have a lot of stuff here, okay, it's very important the way you drag your clips over. So let me go ahead and grab, let's say, Soto. Okay, Oscars. Okay, his is pretty cool. Now, at this point, when you have a lot of stuff in your layer here, you have to be very careful how you drag over. Why? Because if you start dragging stuff just anywhere, you're gonna have an issue as far as placement. So when you have a long list like this, make sure that the one you're dragging over is just at the very top over here, and you can see that little blue line that pops up. That's gonna create a new group for you. See, now I have a group 8. If you don't do that, let me just go ahead and undo that. And you just kind of drag just anywhere here. You might put it within a group. You might put it just kind of lower than you really need it, and you start getting all this weird stuff. So when you're dragging your stuff, what did I do here? See, and then you get some funny stuff like this. So don't do that. Do not do that. Okay, so let me just clear this stuff up so it looks nice and clean. So I'm just going to grab Soto, make sure he's at the very top right here, and so it creates a brand new layer for me and a new group, and it looks nice. Okay, so we're gonna go from these 3 over to Oscar Soto, kicking my Argentina ball around, or actually heading it. Okay, so he goes from that. Okay, looks pretty cool. This one one's actually really cool. Okay, so then you just lock and you keep dragging stuff in. Some of these unfortunately will not make the cut. Megan, let me just kind of show you why it's going to be difficult to do Megan's. The issue with Megan's is that, see this hard cut right here? Because this is our 1280 HD frame here, and then this was what the camera shot. So the issue is, so this is a really cool animation, and she comes out. See, so she stops here, and then her frame starts there. So the issue here is this frame is going to be kind of a hard kind of entry into the video itself. So I will find a way around this to help include these, but for now, Megan's, anyone's that have hard cuts like that, just exclude those for now until we can find a better way of including them in our final video. So I'm gonna do maybe from Oscar Soto. We're just gonna jump to, and again, the order in which you put these is really up to you. Kind of, you're gonna be the editor behind this. So I'm just gonna add Scott Chow. Okay, throw him up to the very top so he creates his very own group. And well, I'm on group 9 already, and then Scott Chow again. We may want to make him a little bigger. So I will just put him into place here. Okay. Oscars, see how he kind of, we'll probably stop his there, okay, at that action, which is pretty cool. Slide Scott's over, and looks cool. Okay, Scott jumps up, and we can end maybe with Bowie. Okay, I'll throw him up here, and you get Bowie doing his cool. Okay, again, you see how we reached the very end of our timeline here. We're just gonna have to extend this, so let's go ahead and just add 1800 and stretch this out. Our timeline is getting smaller, and stretch out our timeline here. You do not want to go, let's say this was our very last clip that we used, you do not want to have extra space here, only because it will actually render that in the movie. So we're going to just kind of stop it there. Let's say this was our very last clip, then we would change this to about 12:55. So let's say 12:55 was our very last frame. We're actually going to be putting credits and things like that, so we might want to go a little bit further, but you're going to want to make sure that this kind of matches up to this here, so it's not, you don't have a lot of dead space toward the end. But we'll look at that toward the end. Now, we have this, and that's pretty much all. Okay, when you have a final edit, we'll go over how you can export this and how you can, essentially you're just gonna go over to File, we're gonna go over to Export. We're going to choose, once this starts, we're gonna leave this as is. And we're just going to create a movie out of this. Okay, and this will be P3 underscore last first underscore roto final. And you're going to export it. We're going to be adding music to this. We're going to be adding a lot of cool different things to this. Okay, you'll notice here that because my animation is 1800 frames, it's going to render up to 1800. So all this from this point over, it's going to be all just dead space, and that's not what you want. Okay, so everything else looks pretty good. If you have any questions, just make sure to ask, and I'll be walking around just to ensure that you kind of get just the basics of this. And I mean, you're going to want to really keep your timeline clean and just like this, because it can get really messy, particularly with all the groups and the layers and all that other fancy stuff. Okay, so just make sure whenever you're stacking that you have the layers set to multiply. Okay, in your as far as your blend mode. Okay, and you can actually see if I bring up my layer windows here, I can see that these groups here have been set to multiply, and everything else is normal, and each other groups are passed through. Okay, so just go ahead and save the file, export it when you are done, and then we're going to look at how we can add music to this. Alright, awesome, see you next time.